It's just been announced at New York Comic Con, we're getting a brand new series of Marvel Comics based on our favourite Jedi from the prequel era. And you'll notice they've kind of ripped off the logo from Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight. The logo uses the same font and typeface. Nonetheless, pretty exciting, always good to have a new picture of Yaddle, by the way. And some Star Wars fans are wondering, is this bad news for something like Tales of the Jedi Season 2? If they're exploring more of these Jedi in the comics, does that mean we're going to see less of them in animated form on screen? I'm hoping not. There have been rumours, mainly from Star Wars Sessions podcast, that we are going to get a second season at some point. They reckon sometime in 2025. So next year, we should have another animated show. Is it going to be the mainline continuation of The Bad Batch, maybe in a Clone Rebellion show focusing on Rex? Or is it going to be more of an anthology series like Visions, or Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire? I'm hoping it's Tales of the Jedi Season 2. There are so many stories to tell with these characters, especially in light of recent shows confirming more survivors of Order 66. What were they like during the time of the Republic? Who are their masters? But it's not the only bit of prequel news we have. If you've been following my channel for a few years now, you've probably noticed that in my lore breakdowns, I like to highlight characters who are underappreciated in the Star Wars galaxy, but very important. And this year in 2024 in both books and comics, we've had some real gems. But today we have something shocking. Can you imagine how different the galaxy would have been if there was no Kanan Jarrus? Well, you might want to thank the Force there was, because Caleb Dume was almost never trained in the first place. Star Wars have just given us a crazy reveal, how close we were to never having Kanan. His absence would have had profound consequences for the Rebellion, Jedi Legacy, Ezra Bridger, key events in Star Wars Rebels, and even beyond his death, through his legacy in the Ahsoka show, through Hera and their son, Jason. More on this later on. So what am I talking about, my dear friends? Well, big spoiler warning, because we're going to be talking about the brand new book, The Living Force, by John Jackson Miller. It's not the first time I've spoken about this book. I've mentioned it in the context of the story of Qui-Gon Jinn and Saesee Tiin. This is the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace, and in light of that, this book focuses on the 12 members of the Jedi Council during that time, and the character at the centre of a massive change 25 years later is Depa Billaba, the apprentice of Mace Windu and the master of Kanan. She's a character who's fascinated Dave Filoni for years, and we saw her die in the first episode of The Bad Batch Season 1 during the execution of Order 66, and that moment was an on-screen depiction of the same event explored in the Kanan comics. Even though Depa died at the end of the Clone Wars, her legacy throughout recent Star Wars content is very much still alive. She was referenced a bunch of times in Star Wars Rebels. Ezra, being the latest in the Master-Apprentice lineage, is continuing the Shatterpoint line. Mace Windu, Depa, Kanan, Ezra, and then maybe Jason. But the impact Kanan Jarrus had on Star Wars canon before his death cannot be overstated, and he learned so much from Depa. He was crucial to the foundation of the Rebel Alliance, but by training Ezra, some of Depa's teachings were kept alive. So this new book, The Living Force, goes all the way back just before the Phantom Menace, and we learn that Depa Billaba almost didn't take on Caleb Dume as her Padawan in the first place. In the novel, as I mentioned the last time we spoke about this, Qui-Gon Jinn challenges the Jedi Council to take a renewed interest in a more present iteration of the Living Force, focusing on the individuals that make up the galaxy, the more mundane, smaller everyday things. And so, taking Qui-Gon's words to heart, the various members of the council find ways to, quote, help one person, and focus on the servitude side of being a Jedi. They decide to visit the world of Quen, and the Jedi Council is then split up, embarking on personal missions of their own, or in pairs. For example, Plo Koon and Saesee Tiin helped to resolve a labour dispute. But Depa Billaba was a bit different, because she was already in the region working undercover to infiltrate a group of pirates. She formed a friendship with a young girl who was working for the pirates known as Riftwalkers. Depa's mission took a turn when she tried to keep the girl safe while investigating the pirates' plans to unite multiple crime syndicates. And it should be noted, this entire investigation began following the death of a fellow Jedi in the region, one who Depa Billaba refused to take on as her own apprentice due to fear of forming an attachment. She had remembered the words of Yoda, fear is the path to the dark side. But regardless, Depa was paranoid. In the end, she received guidance from Master Windu. She had to let go of the past and what had been. In employing her master's advice, Depa not only saves the girl, but overcomes her fears of taking on a Padawan, and realizes it's time. Had it not been for that mission, she wouldn't have had the confidence to take on Caleb, and one of the key lessons she would pass down to Kanan is overcoming the past and that fear of attachment, the fear that something might go wrong. And if you think of further down the line, what Kanan would have to deal with in years to come, it's no wonder he was so strong. He learned from the best. He had to overcome Order 66, living on his own, forming a found family in the Ghost Crew, daring to take on Ezra as his own apprentice. So much of Kanan's strength and resilience comes from Master Billaba, and I don't think Star Wars fans realise just how insane her story is. She nearly died fatally on 3 separate occasions before the end of the Clone Wars when she did actually meet her end. At one point, she and her troops faced off against General Grievous on Harun Kal. The battle was devastating, and Billaba was left in a coma. After 6 months of care at the Jedi Temple Infirmary, she physically recovered, but the High Council was amazed that her mental and emotional state didn't suffer. They didn't think she'd be the same ever again, but after undergoing a full fitness assessment, she was cleared to resume her duties on the Council. So like I said, when we're talking about resilience in the context of Kanan, we have to remember the Jedi Master he learned that from. Following her reinstatement, Billaba became interested in Caleb Dume, a curious Padawan she never met. His inquisitive nature caught her attention, particularly how he questioned how Jedi Knights chose their Padawans. Billaba took an active role in mentoring Dume, realizing he was not a conventional Jedi. You know, we often say that Kanan almost was the Qui-Gon Jinn of Star Wars Rebels. He really took an interest in the living force. He was an independent thinker and not afraid to question, something Depa Billaba actually appreciated. Now, Depa was known for her wisdom and deep spirituality as a Jedi, teaching Caleb to be open to whatever unforeseen circumstances the Force throws at him. And seeing what Depa had been through, if there was ever a day where the Jedi were in danger, he knew to trust in the Force and adapt, which is almost why his blindness in Star Wars Rebels didn't faze him. How he was able to have a deep spiritual connection to the Bendu, as well as the mysterious connection to the Lothwolves. And evidently Master Billaba passed down to Kanan things that Mace Windu taught her, including questioning the ways of the Jedi. To her, it wasn't about vanity or leadership, but their duty as guardians of peace. And part of her pacifist philosophy wasn't necessarily Jedi, but rather Chalactan traditions. She taught Kanan the value of understanding and managing emotions rather than being ruled by them. I've often said, Kanan Jarrus is one of the best Jedi characters Disney gave us, by teaching him how to confront change and the unpredictable nature of life. Billaba helped him develop resilience needed to survive the trauma of the Great Jedi Purge, and the loss of the Jedi Order, and his life as a fugitive before Star Wars Rebels. Those years have been explored in literature, but I love to see them on screen. Such an amazing character, and I highly recommend The Living Force if you've not read it. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this type of video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, check me out on socials, the link to my Patreon is down below, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.